The sun was sinking low over the dry plains of Arizona, its red fire painting the skies as a lone rider cut across the land. His name was Elias Kane. But in the towns, scattered across the dust, folks whispered another name, the Ghost Rider. He spoke little, he lingered even less, and never met a person's gaze longer than he needed to. His horse, Dusty, was his only companion, and anyone could see it from one look. This was a man carrying a weight no whiskey or gunfire could lift. Every town had a story about him. Some said he once killed a man for stealing his horse. Others swore he had lost the woman he loved and never recovered. But no one truly knew, because Elias never told. He worked where work was found, herding cattle, fixing fences, guarding stagecoaches. And when the job was done, he rode out before dawn without a word. People learned not to ask questions, and he learned not to answer them. One evening, he rode into a town called Dusthaven, where saloon doors squeaked like old ghosts, and the church bell echoed across the empty hills. He came for work at the Moore Ranch, owned by a widow named Margaret Moore. Her land stretched wide and wild, but she had more cattle than hands to manage them. When Elias knocked on her door, she studied him with weary eyes. "You're a quiet one, aren't you?" she said. "I do my work," he replied. "That'll do," she nodded. "The land doesn't wait for talkers." From that day, Elias became part of the ranch, but never part of the people. The other ranch hands laughed, drank, played cards, but he stayed apart, polite, distant, like a man behind a wall only he could see. And that's when Abigail Moore noticed him, Margaret's daughter, 24, soft brown hair, eyes that seemed to see beyond the surface. While others mocked his silence, Abigail was drawn to it. She'd watch him from the porch, the way he moved, steady, calm, sure. When storms rolled in, he was the first to ride out. When someone was hurt, he carried them home. But no matter her kindness, Elias always kept his distance. When she brought him water or thanked him for fixing a gate, he would nod once, mount Dusty, and disappear into the horizon. One evening, a group of cowboys rode in from a nearby ranch. Loud, boisterous, careless. One of them, a tall man named Jed Carter, started talking to Abigail. Charming, smooth, dangerous in the way only some men can be. Abigail smiled politely, but her eyes kept drifting toward Elias, who was mending a saddle strap by the barn. Jed noticed. "You mean to tell me you'd rather look at that fella than talk to me?" Abigail shook her head softly. "He's not what you think," she said. Jed laughed. "He's just another broken gun hand, too proud to live or die." He heard it, but he said nothing. He tightened the strap, mounted Dusty, and rode off, leaving the words behind in the dust. Abigail watched him go, something twisting deep in her chest. That night, the wind howled across the fields. She found him sitting alone by the corral, staring at the stars. "You don't have to be alone all the time," she whispered. "I'm fine this way," he answered, still not looking at her. "No one's fine forever," she said softly. He did not answer. Only the creak of the fence and the low murmur of the horses filled the night. If you feel the weight of Elias Kane's journey, pause for a moment. Take a breath, and don't forget to subscribe to Whispers with Ivy, where every story is whispered and every soul has a voice waiting to be heard. Days passed, and word came that Jed's gang had been seen near the ranch again, drunk, reckless, searching for trouble. Then, one stormy night, the smell of rain heavy in the air, shots rang out across the pasture. Elias ran first. He found 2 ranch hands hiding behind the barn, faces pale. "They took the wagon," one whispered. "Abigail, she's in it." His heart pounded like a drum. Without a word, he grabbed his rifle, mounted Dusty, and rode into the darkness. Rain blurred the plains, soaked through his coat and hair. He followed the tracks through mud and brush until a flickering lantern appeared near the old bridge. Jed and his men had stopped there. Abigail was struggling, shouting for help. Jed laughed, his voice cutting through the storm.
That was all Elias needed. He raised his rifle and fired once. The shot cracked through the rain, blowing Jed's hat clean off his head. Panic erupted in the gang. Before they could return fire, Elias charged like a thunderstorm on horseback. One shot, another man fell, the rest scattered into the night. When it was over, Abigail stood trembling, rain mixing with tears on her cheeks. Elias dismounted. "So, are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head. "You came for me." He looked away. "Couldn't let them take you." Her voice broke. "Why do you push everyone away, Elias? What are you running from?" He didn't answer. The wind whispered past them, soft and steady, carrying the scent of sage and dust. Abigail said, "Whatever it is, you deserve to be loved anyway." For the first time in years, Elias looked at someone, and something stirred inside him. The storm passed, but something had shifted. The Ghost Rider of Dusthaven was no longer just a shadow. The morning sun rose over Dusthaven, turning the wet ground into a field of gold. The storm had passed, but the air still held a quiet tension. Abigail stood on the porch, watching Elias saddle Dusty. His coat was damp, his eyes heavy, yet calm in a way only a man who had faced storms could be. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. "Didn't need to," he replied. "You saved me, Elias. You could have been killed." He paused, looking toward the north pasture, the wind tugging at his coat like a dark shadow. "Wouldn't be the first time I almost was," he said. She frowned. "Why do you talk like your life doesn't matter?" He looked at her, voice low, steady. "Because maybe it doesn't." She didn't flinch. "It does to me." He said nothing, mounted Dusty, and rode toward the north pasture, disappearing into the golden light. At breakfast, the ranch hands whispered about the night before, how Elias had faced down 3 men alone, how Jed's gang had fled into the hills like cowards. They spoke his name with respect, perhaps even a hint of fear. But Elias did not stay to hear it. By mid-morning, he was miles away, fixing a fence, alone, as always. Later, Abigail brought him lunch, bread, beans, coffee. She placed it on the fence post and whispered, "You can't fix everything alone, you know." Elias did not look up. "The fence won't fix itself." "That's not what I mean." He stopped working, leaning against the post. "I know what you mean, but you don't know me." "Then tell me," she said softly. "Tell me why you keep running." For a long moment, he didn't speak. The wind blew soft across the plains, carrying the scent of sage and dust. Finally, he set the hammer down. "I had a wife once. Her name was Lydia. We had a small ranch near Tucson. It was ours. One night, some drifters came through looking for money. I wasn't home. When I returned, the house was burned down. They left her inside." Abigail's eyes filled with tears. He continued, voice steady, but broken. "I tried to find them. For months I followed their trail, but by the time I caught one of them, I'd already lost myself. I killed him. After that, nothing mattered. Not the land, not the law, not me. I've been running from my own shadow ever since." She stepped closer. "You blame yourself for what happened." He looked at her. "I left her alone. That's all I'll ever remember." She shook her head. "You didn't kill her, Elias. Evil men did. But if you keep living like this, you're letting them win again." He looked away, throat tight. "You sound just like she used to," he murmured. "Maybe that's why I was meant to find you," she whispered softly. "To remind you you're still alive." For the first time in years, he did not walk away. He stood there, staring at the open land, at the endless blue sky stretching above. Something in him wanted to believe her. That evening, he stayed for supper at the ranch house, something he had never done before. The air was warm. Candles flickered. The smell of roasted meat filled the kitchen. Ranch hands were surprised to see him there, sitting beside Abigail, quiet but calm. After dinner, when everyone left, she poured him coffee. "You don't have to thank me for the meal. Just promise you won't disappear again." Elias gave a small nod. "I'll try."
The next few days were peaceful. Elias began to smile a little, talk a little, help Abigail with the horses. The ranch hands noticed. The ghost rider was starting to look alive again. But in the West, peace was never promised. One cold November morning, a rider came fast from the South Road. "Jed's gang is back," he shouted. "They're heading this way." Panic spread across the ranch. Margaret ordered everyone to the barn, told the women to stay inside. But Abigail refused. "I'm not hiding. Not this time." Elias tightened his belt, loaded his rifle, and looked at her. "You stay behind me." Abigail nodded, gripping a small pistol her father had left. Dust rose on the horizon. Jed and 4 riders thundered toward the ranch, guns raised. Elias was already in position. He fired first, dropping one man's horse. The others circled wide, trying to surround the house. Abigail took cover near the porch, shooting steadily despite her fear. Jed's voice rang out. "You think you can run from me, Cain? I ain't done with you yet." Elias stepped into the open, calm as stone. "You should have kept riding." Jed fired, missing by inches.
Elias returned fire, tearing through Jed's shoulder. Jed fell to the ground, the others fleeing into the hills. Jed glared up at him. "Go ahead, finish it," he hissed. Elias stared, finger tightening on the trigger. But then he stopped. Abigail ran to him, breathless. "Elias, don't. It's over." He lowered the rifle slowly. It ended there. The law would deal with Jed. That night, after the sheriff took Jed away, the ranch was quiet. Abigail found Elias on the porch, staring at the stars. "You did the right thing," she whispered. He nodded. "For the first time in a long while, maybe I did." The silence between them was gentle now, like the quiet after a storm. "You still think you don't deserve love?" she asked. He met her eyes. "I don't know, but maybe I can try to." And she smiled. The kind of smile that could mend a broken soul. If you're following Elias Kane's journey and want to see more stories where silence speaks louder than words, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications for Whispers with Ivy. The stories are waiting, and every soul has a voice ready to be heard. Months passed. Dust Haven saw peace like it hadn't in years. The Moore Ranch stood strong. Fences repaired, cattle healthy, men proud. Elias Kane was no longer the ghost rider. Quiet, careful with words, but softened inside. When he smiled, people noticed. When he worked alongside the hands, he taught the younger boys to ride, straight shoot, and stay calm. Every morning, Abigail met him by the barn with 2 cups of coffee. They watched the sun rise, saying nothing. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than words. One morning, she asked softly, "Ever think about leaving again?" Elias looked out over the open land, once his prison, now his peace. He said, "Used to think I couldn't stay anywhere long. Now I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be." She smiled. "That's good, because I'm not letting you go." He chuckled quietly, a rare sound. "Guess I don't stand a chance then." "No, you don't," she teased. Life returned to something close to normal. But one evening, a letter arrived from Tucson. The sheriff wrote that the last of the outlaws responsible for Lydia's death had been caught. Elias was needed to testify. He read it twice, then folded it carefully. That night, the wind howled through the valley. He told Abigail everything. "I thought it was all over, but maybe it's time I finished what started years ago." Her eyes filled with worry. "You can't go alone." "I have to. Something I need to face." She reached for his hand. "I'll be here when you get back." He squeezed her hand gently. "That's the only reason I'll come back." 2 days later, he rode south, following the trails he had once taken, chasing ghosts he no longer feared. This time, his heart was not empty. He was not running. The trial in Tucson was swift. He faced the man who destroyed his life, not with anger, but calm resolve. The outlaw, tired, beaten, afraid, looked up. When asked to speak, Elias said simply, "I forgive him." The courtroom went silent. Forgiveness did not erase the past, but it set him free. Riding home under a pale sky, he saw smoke rising from the Moore Ranch chimney and laughter drifting through the air. Abigail stood by the gate, waiting. He dismounted, boots touching familiar dirt, heart steady. "You kept your promise," she said, smiling through tears. "So did you," he replied. "What now, cowboy?" she asked. He looked around, horses grazing, the land glowing in the sunset, peace all around. "Now," he said softly, "I live."
That evening, the ranch gathered for supper. Margaret raised her glass to new beginnings. Everyone cheered. The fire crackled. The stars shone bright above. Elias sat beside Abigail, her hand resting in his. Later, after laughter had faded, they stood on the porch. The moon was bright, the wind soft and warm. Abigail leaned her head on his shoulder. "You were always meant to find your way home, Elias. You just needed someone to remind you." He turned to her, voice low and steady. "You did more than remind me, Abigail. You saved me." She smiled, eyes glistening. "No, Elias, you saved yourself. I just showed you where to look." The night grew still. Somewhere an owl called. The land stretched quiet and endless before them. Elias wrapped his arm around her. Peace settled in his chest for the first time in years. He thought of Lydia, her laughter, her love, but instead of pain, he felt gratitude. She had been his past. Abigail was his present, and his future did not scare him anymore. When dawn broke over Dust Haven, the cattle moved slowly. The air smelled of dust and coffee. Abigail's laughter drifted through the yard. Elias Kane stood by the corral, tipping his hat as the sun climbed high. The Ghost Rider was gone. In his place stood a man reborn, a man who had learned that even the hardest hearts can heal, that love isn't earned, it is given. And sometimes, all it takes is someone brave enough to say the words you've been running from your whole life. If this story moved you tonight, subscribe to Whispers with Ivy and join us for more tales where the West whispers its secrets and every soul has a story ready to be heard.